Welcome to the family. If you enjoy powerful stories and wild adventures, subscribe now, hit like and share with someone who will love it too. The crystalline caverns of Vex Prime had always been treacherous, but Kira had never imagined she would find herself in such a mortifying situation. The young Vexian explorer pressed her face against the cool stone, her slender blue form wedged firmly in what had seemed like a perfectly navigable passage just moments before. Her species, the Vexians, were known throughout the galaxy for their grace and agility. Their elongated limbs and flexible joints made them natural cave explorers and miners. But today, Kira's confidence had gotten the better of her. She had been pursuing a rare energy signature deep within the abandoned mining tunnels when the passage had suddenly narrowed. Now, with her shoulders caught between two converging walls and her lower body trapped in the tight confines, she couldn't move forward or backward. "This is humiliating," she muttered in her native tongue, her bioluminescent patches flickering with embarrassment. The soft blue glow that emanated from her skin, a natural trait of her people, cast eerie shadows on the tunnel walls around her. Kira had been exploring these caverns for 3 cycles now, documenting the strange energy, readings that had been detected by orbital scanners. The Galactic Mining Consortium had classified this world as depleted, but her research suggested otherwise. There were untapped resources here, possibly even rare quantum crystals that could revolutionize space travel. She tried again to squeeze, through pushing with her feet against the tunnel floor behind her. The rough stones scraped against her protective exploration suit, but she remained firmly stuck. Her breathing became more labored as panic began to set in. The tunnels were isolated, and her communication device had limited range this deep underground. "Status report, Explorer Kira," came a crackling voice through her comm unit. "I'm encountering some difficulties," she replied, not wanting to admit the full extent of her predicament to mission control. "The passage is more restrictive than anticipated." The voice on the other end, belonging to Commander Vex, was characteristically stern. "We've lost your position signal. Are you in immediate danger?" Kira hesitated. Admitting she was stuck would mean calling for a rescue operation, which would not only be embarrassing, but could also jeopardize the entire research mission. The consortium had only approved limited resources for this expedition. "Negative, Commander. Just investigating some interesting formations. Will report back within the hour." She clicked off the communicator before he could respond, immediately regretting the lie. Now she had less than an hour to free herself before they would expect her check-in. The energy signature that had led her here was stronger than ever. Her scanner, still clutched in her right hand, showed readings that made her antennae twitch, with excitement despite her current predicament. Whatever was producing this energy was just beyond the narrow passage, perhaps only a few meters away. She tried a different approach, attempting to compress her ribcage and slide sideways through the gap. Vexians were naturally flexible, but there were limits to even their anatomy. The stone walls seemed to grip her tighter with each movement. Time ticked by slowly in the dim tunnel. Her bioluminescent patches had dimmed to conserve energy, leaving her in near darkness, save for the faint glow of her scanner. The air was thin but breathable, recycled through the ancient mining ventilation systems that somehow still functioned after decades of abandonment. As the minutes passed, Kira began to wonder if she would have to swallow her pride and call for help after all. But rescue teams would take hours to reach this depth, and the narrow passage that trapped her would make extraction difficult even for them. It was then that she heard something unexpected echoing through the tunnels behind her. The sound of footsteps. The footsteps were heavy and rhythmic, nothing like the soft padding of Vexian feet. Kira's heart raced as she strained to listen. The mining tunnels were supposed to be deserted, and no other members of her team were scheduled to explore this sector. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing strangely in the confined space. "Is someone there?" The footsteps paused, then resumed with more purpose. A beam of bright white light suddenly illuminated the tunnel behind her, far more intense than the soft bioluminescence her people produced. "Well, I'll be damned," came a voice in Galactic Standard, tinged with an accent she didn't immediately recognize. "Looks like someone's having a rough day." Kira craned her neck as much as she could to look back, catching a glimpse of a bipedal figure approaching. As the being came closer, she realized what she was looking at. A human. She had never encountered one of their species in person, though she had heard stories. The human was shorter than most Vexians but appeared much more solidly built. He wore practical exploration gear and carried a large pack filled with equipment that clinked softly as he walked. His skin was a warm brown color, and his dark hair was pulled back under a wide-brimmed hat that seemed oddly out of place in an underground tunnel. "Are you okay there, miss?" the human asked, setting down his pack and pulling out additional lighting equipment. "Looks like you've gotten yourself into quite the pickle." "I am temporarily inconvenienced," Kira replied stiffly, her pride warring, with her relief at having found help. "I am Explorer Kira of the Vexian Survey Corps. And you are?" "Name's Jake," the human said, with what she would later learn was a characteristic grin. "Jake Morrison, independent prospector and general troublemaker. Been working these tunnels for about a week now." He began unpacking various tools from his kit with practiced efficiency. "This is a restricted research area," Kira said, though her position hardly gave her much authority at the moment. Jake chuckled. "Well, the consortium's claim ran out 3 months ago, and they never filed for renewal. Makes it open territory as far as I'm concerned." He approached her predicament with the casual air of someone who had seen plenty of unusual situations. "Now let's see what we're working with here." He played his light over the narrow passage, examining the stone formations that held her captive. Kira noticed his tools were different from the standard equipment she was familiar with, more improvised, but they looked well-maintained and practical. Jake mused, running his hand along the tunnel walls. "Looks like this passage used to be wider. See these stress fractures? The walls have shifted over time, probably from mining operations years ago. You managed to squeeze into what used to be a normal corridor. Can you get me out?" Kira asked, abandoning any pretense of dignity. "Oh, I can get you out," Jake said, confidently. "Question is whether we do it the easy way or the hard way. Easy way involves some equipment I've got that can shift these walls back a bit. Hard way involves—" He gestured vaguely. "Well, let's try the easy way first." He returned to his pack and pulled out what looked like a series of telescoping metal rods and some kind of hydraulic device. Kira watched in fascination as he began assembling what appeared to be a sophisticated jack system. "You humans are known for your resourcefulness," she said, remembering the stories she had heard in the academy. "But I have never seen equipment like that." "Built it myself," Jake replied, positioning the first jack against the tunnel wall. "Spent some time in the asteroid mining belts, where you learn to make do with what you've got. Standard equipment is expensive, and when you're working claims solo, you need tools that can handle anything." The first jack began to emit a low humming sound as Jake activated it. Kira felt a slight shift in the pressure against her shoulders. "Easy does it," Jake muttered, monitoring readings on a small display. "Don't want to bring the whole tunnel down on us." The hydraulic jacks hummed steadily as Jake made minute adjustments to their positioning. Kira could feel the stone walls gradually shifting, relieving some of the pressure that had held her captive. What impressed her most was the human's methodical approach. He wasn't rushing despite her obvious distress. "How did you know this would work?" she asked, trying to keep her mind off the claustrophobic sensation of being trapped. "Physics," Jake replied simply, checking his readings again. "Rock formations like these are always under stress. The mining operations that created these tunnels disrupted the natural equilibrium. Sometimes all you need is a little push in the right direction to make them settle back where they want to be." He had positioned 3 separate jacks at strategic points around the narrow passage. Each one applied pressure gradually, working together to widen the gap that held her. Kira noticed that his equipment, while improvised, showed a sophisticated understanding of structural engineering. "Your species has quite a reputation in the outer colonies," she said, partly to make conversation and partly out of genuine curiosity. "They say humans can solve problems that would stump entire teams of specialists," Jake laughed. "We're stubborn, I'll give you that. When something doesn't work the way it's supposed to, we tend to take it personally." He adjusted one of the jacks. "Try moving now, just a little wiggle to test the clearance." Kira carefully shifted her weight and found she could move her shoulders slightly. The improvement was small but noticeable. "It's working," she said with relief. "Good. Now, while we wait for the rock to settle, want to tell me what you're really doing down here?" Jake gestured to her scanner, which was still showing active readings. "That's some serious equipment for a routine survey." Kira hesitated. The mission was technically classified, but Jake had already proven himself trustworthy by helping her. "I'm investigating energy signatures that shouldn't exist. The official surveys classified this world as depleted, but my preliminary scans suggest there are significant untapped resources." "Quantum crystals?" Jake asked, his tone sharpening with interest. Her antennae twitched in surprise. "How did you—" "Because I've been tracking the same signatures," he said. "That's why I'm here. Been following energy trails through 3 different systems, and they all pointed to this world." He tapped his own scanner, a device that looked jury-rigged but clearly functional. "Your people might have the best official equipment, but sometimes a fresh perspective helps." The revelation that they were both after the same discovery created an unexpected moment of tension. Kira wondered if Jake would still help her if he saw her as competition. As if reading her thoughts, he said, "Don't worry, I'm not about to leave you stuck here and run off with your discovery. Plenty of crystals in the galaxy for everyone, and besides," he gestured to the tunnel ahead of them, "I get the feeling whatever's down there is going to require both our skill sets to reach safely." The jacks had done their work. Jake began the delicate process of removing them while maintaining the structural integrity of the passage. "Try sliding forward now, but go slow. Let me know if you feel any increase in pressure." Kira pushed gently with her feet and felt herself move forward for the first time in over an hour. The relief was overwhelming. With careful maneuvering, she managed to work her shoulders through the widened gap, then her torso, until finally she emerged completely from the narrow passage. She stood and stretched, her joints popping audibly. Her bioluminescent patches flared bright blue with relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said formally, then added with more warmth, "Thank you, Jake Morrison. You have saved not just my life, but my career." "Don't mention it," Jake said, packing up his equipment with the same methodical care he had shown in setting. "Cut up. Besides, now I'm curious about what had you so determined to squeeze through that death trap." Kira looked at her scanner, then at the tunnel ahead where the passage opened up again. The energy readings were stronger than ever. "Would you like to find out together? I believe there may be enough discovery here for 2 explorers." Jake shouldered his pack and adjusted his hat. "Lead the way, Explorer Kira, but next time you see a passage that looks too narrow, maybe we take the long way around." She laughed, the sound echoing musically through the tunnel. "Agreed. From now on we do things the human way, carefully and with proper equipment." The tunnel beyond the narrow passage opened into a vast underground chamber that took both explorers' breath away. Kira's bioluminescent patches flared brightly in amazement, casting blue light across crystalline formations that seemed to stretch infinitely upward into the darkness. "Sweet mother of," Jake whispered, sweeping his high-powered beam across the cavern walls. Everywhere the light touched, crystal formations sparkled and reflected, creating a dazzling display of refracted illumination. But these weren't ordinary crystals. The energy readings on both their scanners were going wild, and the air itself seemed to hum with potential energy. The formations pulsed with an inner light that cycled through colors neither of their species could naturally produce. "Jake," Kira breathed, her voice filled with awe. "These aren't just quantum crystals. I think we found a naturally occurring quantum resonance chamber." "In layman's terms?" Jake asked, though he was already unpacking more sophisticated scanning equipment. "The crystals are naturally aligned in a way that amplifies quantum energy. This isn't just a deposit. It's like finding a naturally occurring power plant." Kira moved carefully into the chamber, her scanner painting the air with holographic displays of energy patterns. The applications for faster-than-light communication alone would revolutionize galactic commerce. Jake let out a low whistle. "No wonder your survey core and my energy trails led to the same place. This kind of formation should be theoretically impossible." They spent the next hour documenting the chamber, their earlier competition forgotten in the face of such a momentous discovery. Jake's improvised equipment proved surprisingly complementary to Kira's advanced sensors. His tools could measure aspects of the formation that her standardized gear missed, while her precise instruments provided the detailed readings his equipment couldn't match. "There's something else," Jake said, studying a section of the chamber wall. "Look at these tool marks. This chamber isn't entirely natural." Kira joined. Him and her antennae twitched with excitement. Carved into the crystal walls were symbols and patterns that clearly showed intelligent design. These markings, they're ancient, possibly predating any known civilization in this sector. So we're looking at an ancient quantum engineering project that's been running autonomously for who knows how long, Jake summarized. That explains why the energy signatures were so hard to track. They've been fluctuating based on some kind of programmed cycle. Their communicators chose that moment to crackle to life simultaneously. "Explorer Kira, report your status immediately," came Commander Vex's stern voice. "Your check-in is overdue, and we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from your last known position." Jake's communicator was broadcasting on a different frequency. "Morrison, this is Port Authority. We're showing some kind of massive energy event in your sector. What's your status?" Kira and Jake looked at each other, both realizing the implications. Their presence in the chamber, their scanning equipment, something had triggered a change in the ancient systems. The crystals were pulsing more rapidly now, and the humming in the air was growing louder. "Commander," Kira spoke into her communicator, "I'm safe, but I've made a discovery that requires immediate attention from the Xenoarchaeology Department. I need you to contact—" The chamber suddenly filled with blinding light as the crystal formations achieved some kind of resonance peak. Both explorers shielded their eyes as energy coursed through the ancient patterns carved into the walls. When the light faded, they found themselves looking at something impossible. The far wall of the chamber had become transparent, revealing another vast space beyond. But this space wasn't carved from rock. It was clearly artificial, filled with structures and devices that hummed with the same energy as the crystals. "Jake," Kira said quietly, "I don't think we just found an ancient engineering project. I think we found an ancient engineering team." In the revealed chamber beyond, shapes were moving. Tall, graceful figures that seemed to be made partially of the same crystalline material as the walls themselves. They had noticed the two explorers and were approaching the newly transparent barrier. "Should we run?" Jake asked, his hand moving instinctively to the emergency beacon on his belt. "I don't think so," Kira replied, watching the approaching figures with fascination rather than fear. "Look at their movements. They're not aggressive. They seem curious." One of the crystalline beings placed what appeared to be a hand against the transparent barrier. The crystals throughout both chambers pulsed in response, and suddenly both Kira and Jake could hear something that might have been communication, not words, but patterns of meaning that somehow made sense to their minds. "Welcome," the meaning conveyed. "We have been waiting for those who could solve the passage." "The passage?" Jake asked aloud, and somehow the being seemed to understand. "We needed to know that your kinds could work together, could combine different ways of thinking to overcome obstacles." The narrow tunnel was a test. Kira's eyes widened with understanding. "They've been watching us, the stuck passage, everything. It was designed to see if different species could cooperate." "Your species show promise," the being continued. "We are the builders. We have been waiting for the galaxy to mature enough to inherit what we have created." The crystalline being, one of the ancient builders, gestured toward the vast technological chamber beyond the barrier. As it did, the transparent wall began to dissolve, allowing Kira and Jake to enter what was clearly a vast repository of advanced technology. "We are the last of our kind," the builder communicated, its thoughts flowing directly into their minds with crystalline clarity. "For eons we have maintained these installations throughout the galaxy, waiting for younger species to develop the wisdom to use them properly." Jake and Kira stepped carefully into the new chamber, their scanners going wild with readings from technology that seemed to blend quantum physics with artistic beauty. Every surface hummed with purposeful energy, and the air itself felt alive with possibilities. "This is incredible," Kira whispered, her bioluminescent patches shifting to a deep purple of awe. "The energy readings suggest this facility could power an entire star system. Power is merely one application, the builder replied. These crystals you call quantum formations are communication nodes, linking every habitable world in the galaxy. We built them to prepare for the day when the younger races would be ready to truly unite. Jake was examining what appeared to be a control interface, its symbols shifting and changing as he approached. But why the test? Why make us prove we could work together? The builder's crystalline form seemed to brighten with what might have been approval. Your species, the humans, are known for their ingenuity and determination, but they can also be territorial. The Vexians possess great wisdom and patience, but can become isolated in their pursuit of knowledge. Alone, neither species would have reached this chamber, the narrow passage, Kira realized. It required my flexibility to navigate most of the way, but Jake's engineering knowledge and equipment to complete the journey. Precisely. And more importantly, it required trust. The human chose to help rather than exploit. The Vexian chose to share rather than compete. This is the foundation upon which a truly galactic civilization must be built. The builder moved to what appeared to be a central control console, its movements flowing like liquid crystal. As it worked, holographic displays began appearing throughout the chamber, showing star maps with countless worlds connected by lines of energy. We have seeded 10,000 worlds with these communication nodes. Each waits for activation by species, mature enough to use them responsibly. Your discovery here will send a signal to monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Other species will be drawn to their own tests. Tests like ours, Jake asked. Each species faces challenges suited to their nature. Some must overcome fear, others greed, still others the tendency to dominate rather than cooperate. But all must demonstrate they can work with other species as equals. Kira was studying the star map with growing excitement. This network, it would make instant communication possible across the entire galaxy. No more delays for interstellar diplomacy. No more isolation during emergencies. That is only the beginning, the builder continued. The network also enables instantaneous transportation for those who prove themselves worthy. Disease, famine, natural disasters, help could arrive immediately from across the galaxy. Jake whistled low. You're talking about fundamentally changing how galactic civilization works. We are offering the tools for the next phase of galactic's evolution. But the choice of how to use them remains with the younger species. We will provide guidance, but we will not rule. The builder approached them, and both explorers felt a strange tingling sensation as it extended what might have been hands toward them. You have passed the first test, but activating the network requires more than 2 individuals. Your species must choose representatives to undergo the final trial, a test of wisdom that can only be completed by multiple species working in perfect harmony. What kind of trial? Kira asked. You will travel to the center of the galaxy, to the nexus where all communication lines converge. There you will join representatives from other species who have passed their own tests. Together, you must solve a puzzle that requires every different way of thinking, every unique perspective your species bring to the galaxy. Jake and Kira exchanged glances. The magnitude of what was being offered and what was being asked of them was overwhelming. How long do we have to decide? Jake asked. The network has waited for millennia. It can wait longer. But know this, every day of delay means worlds that could be saved are not. Civilizations that could flourish remain isolated. The galaxy remains fractured when it could be whole. The builder began to fade, becoming more translucent. We return to our long sleep now. When you have made your choice, return to this chamber and speak your decision to the crystals. They will remember, and they will act. As the ancient being faded from view, the technological chamber around them began to dim, though the crystal formations continued to pulse with their steady inner light. Well, Jake said after a long moment of silence. That escalated quickly. Kira was still staring at the star map, her mind racing with the implications. Jake, if this is real, if they're offering what I think they're offering, then we just became responsible for making one of the most important decisions in galactic history, Jake finished. No pressure. The journey back through the tunnels was conducted in contemplative silence. Both Kira and Jake carried the weight of the builder's revelation, their minds struggling to process the magnitude of what they had discovered and what choice lay before them. As they reached the surface of Vex Prime, both of their communicators erupted with urgent messages. The energy surge from the ancient chamber had been detected by monitoring stations across 3 star systems, and everyone wanted answers. Explorer Kira, Commander Vex's voice crackled through her comm. A rescue team is being dispatched to your location. The energy readings we detected were off the charts. Are you injured? I'm fine, Commander, Kira replied, glancing at Jake. But I need to speak with you immediately, and you'll want to contact the Xenoarchaeology Council. Jake was fielding his own calls from Port Authority and what sounded like several mining companies who had detected the energy signature. Yeah, I'm okay, he said into his communicator, but I'm going to need to file some very unusual paperwork. They decided to meet with Kira's team first, since the Vexian Survey Corps had better protocols for handling unprecedented discoveries. Commander Vex arrived within 2 hours aboard a sleek Vexian exploration vessel accompanied by a full scientific team. The gruff Vexian commander listened with increasing amazement as Kira and Jake recounted their discovery. His antennae twitched with disbelief when they described the builders and their offer. You're asking me to believe, Commander Vex said slowly, that you've discovered the remnants of a precursor civilization that has been waiting for us to prove ourselves worthy of inheriting a galaxy-spanning communication network. I know how it sounds, Kira said, but the evidence is all there. The chamber, the technology, the energy readings, and this human can corroborate your story? Jake nodded. Every word, and I've got sensor recordings to back it up. Commander. Vex studied Jake with the particular intensity Vexians reserved for puzzling problems. You realize, Mr. Morrison, that if this discovery is verified, it will change everything. No more competition between species for resources, no more isolation during crises, and no more excuses for not working together, Jake added. Yeah, I get it. The scientific team spent 3 days analyzing the chamber and its contents. Their findings supported everything Kira and Jake had reported, but raised new questions about the implications of activation. Dr. Nala, the team's xenoarchaeologist, was practically vibrating with excitement. The cultural significance alone is staggering. These builders appear to have influenced the development of dozens of species across the galaxy. The architectural similarities between ancient ruins on 17 different worlds suddenly make sense. But it was Commander Vex who voiced the concern. That had been weighing on everyone's minds. The question isn't whether we can activate this network. The question is whether we should. Are we really ready for the kind of unity the builders are offering? Jake had been thinking about the same thing. You know what convinced me? It's that they're not forcing it on us. They're offering tools, not rulership. What we do with those tools is up to us. But what if we're wrong? Kira asked. What if we activate the network and it leads to chaos? What if some species use it to dominate others? Then we deal with it, Jake said simply. That's what sapient species do. We face problems and solve them. The builders wouldn't have offered this if they didn't think we were ready. Commander. Vex made his decision with characteristic directness. We contact the Galactic Council. This is too big for one species to handle alone. The next week saw a flurry of diplomatic activity as representatives from major galactic civilizations converged on Vex Prime. The discovery had leaked, despite attempts at secrecy, and the implications were being debated across known space. The EE humans sent Dr. Elena Martinez, a xenosociologist who specialized in interspecies cooperation. The Crystalline Collective dispatched Harmonic 7, a consensus being that could speak for their entire hive mind. The Zephyrians, normally isolationist, surprised everyone by sending Ambassador Velkan personally. As Kira watched the various representatives examining the builder chamber, she realized something profound was already happening. Species that normally dealt with each other through layers of bureaucracy and suspicion were working together directly, sharing information and insights without the usual diplomatic hedging. It's already working, she told Jake quietly, as they watched a heated but productive debate between the human sociologist and the crystalline representative about the ethics of global communication networks. What is the network? Just the possibility of it is making everyone think differently about cooperation. Look at them. They're not competing for advantage. They're actually trying to figure out what's best for everyone. Jake smiled. Maybe that's the real test. Not whether we can solve puzzles or pass trials, but whether we can come together when it really matters. The debate continued for 3 more days, but the conclusion was never really in doubt. Every species present had stories of disasters that could have been prevented, of conflicts that arose from misunderstanding, of opportunities lost to isolation. When the final vote was taken, it was unanimous. They would accept the Builders' challenge. The journey to the Galactic Center took 6 weeks aboard a specially configured exploration vessel that could accommodate representatives from 12 different species. Kira found herself serving as one of the primary liaisons, her experience, with the Builders making her invaluable to the mission. Jake had been recruited as the team's problem-solving specialist, a title that made him laugh, but which proved remarkably accurate. The ship itself was a marvel of interspecies cooperation, with environmental systems designed to support radically different biologies working in the same spaces. The atmosphere in the common areas had been carefully balanced, and specialized chambers provided each species with their preferred conditions for rest and reflection. As they approached the Galactic Center, their sensors began detecting massive energy signatures emanating from what appeared to be a constructed structure, larger than most space stations. The Nexus, as the Builders had called it, was a crystalline framework that seemed to grow directly from the space around Sagittarius, here the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's heart. "Readings are off the charts," reported Engineer Voss from the human contingent. "Whatever that thing is made of, it's drawing power directly from the black hole's accretion disk. The gravitational stresses alone should have torn it apart eons." "Hello," added Dr. Kett, the Vexian physicist. "This is technology beyond our current understanding." As their ship approached the Nexus, they found themselves greeted by others. Vessels from species they had never encountered before, all drawn here by their own version of the test that Kira and Jake had passed. The docking bay that received them was vast enough to accommodate ships of wildly different designs. As they disembarked, they found themselves in a great hall where representatives from across the galaxy were gathering. Some were recognizable species. Others were so alien that communication required specialized translation equipment. "Welcome," came the familiar crystalline communication of the Builders. A figure approached them, not one of the ancient beings themselves, but clearly an artificial construct designed to facilitate the trial. "You have all passed the tests of cooperation. Now comes the test of wisdom." The construct led them to the center of the Great Hall, where a complex 3-dimensional puzzle materialized in the air before them. It was beautiful and incomprehensible, made of light and energy that seemed to respond to thought and intention. "This is the Harmony Engine," the construct explained. "It is the master control for the Galactic Communication Network. To activate it, it must be solved, but it cannot be solved by any one species alone. Each of your kinds possesses a piece of the understanding needed. Only by combining all of your different ways of thinking can the solution be found." Kira studied the puzzle, her enhanced Vexian perception allowing her to see patterns in the energy flows that others might miss. But she could tell immediately that her perspective alone was insufficient. Jake approached from a different angle, his human pragmatism focused on the mechanical aspects of the construction. "It's like a lock," he said, "but instead of a key it needs multiple different types of understanding applied simultaneously." The crystalline representative, Harmonic 7, began to hum, its species' way of processing complex information. The sound seemed to resonate with part of the puzzle, causing sections to light up with harmonious frequencies. What followed was hours of intense collaboration. Each species contributed their unique perspective: the Vexians' pattern recognition, humanity's problem-solving adaptability, the crystallines' harmonic mathematics, the Zephyrians' quantum intuition, and a dozen other ways of understanding reality. Progress was slow and sometimes frustrating. Cultural differences led to misunderstandings, and different species had radically different approaches to problem-solving. But gradually, they began to work as a true team, with each group's strengths compensating for others' limitations. Was Jake who made the crucial breakthrough. "We're thinking about this wrong," he announced during a break in their efforts. "We keep trying to solve it like it's a machine or a mathematical equation. But what if it's not meant to be solved at
all?"
"What do you mean?" asked Dr. Martinez. "What if the real test is just working together? What if the Harmony engine responds not to the right answer, but to the right process?" Kira's antennae brightened with understanding. Harmony, not just the result, but the method. We need to solve it together, not just with each other. They tried again, but this time focusing not on individual contributions, but on true collaboration. Instead of taking turns or dividing responsibilities, they worked. As a single mind with multiple perspectives, the change was immediate and dramatic. The Harmony engine began to pulse with increasing brightness as their collaborative efforts resonated with its design. Energy flowed through the crystalline framework, and suddenly the great hall was filled with the sound of activation. Not mechanical noise, but something that sounded almost like music. "It is done," the construct announced, and its voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. "The network is active. The galaxy is connected." Through the great windows of the Nexus, they could see lines of light beginning to appear between the stars, the visible manifestation of communication links being established across vast distances. On worlds throughout the galaxy, ancient crystalline formations were awakening, ready to carry messages, coordinate relief efforts, and bind together a truly galactic civilization. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. "Now," the construct replied, "you go home and help. Your species learn to use what they have been given. The tools are active, but wisdom in their use must still be earned." As they prepared to return to their respective worlds, Kira found herself standing beside Jake, looking out at the galaxy that had just become a smaller, more connected place. "Think." "We made the right choice?" she asked. Jake smiled, adjusting the hat that he still somehow managed to wear even in the formal setting of the Nexus. "Ask me in 100 years. But right now I think we gave every species in the galaxy the chance to prove they're as good as we hope they are. And if they're not, then we'll deal with it. Together. That's what the network is really for, not just talking to each other, but working together when it matters." As their ship departed the Nexus, carrying representatives back to their homeworlds to begin the great work of galactic integration, both Kira and Jake knew that their accidental meeting in a narrow tunnel had changed the course of history. Sometimes, the most important discoveries happen when you're stuck, and someone unexpected comes along to help you get unstuck. And sometimes getting unstuck is just the beginning of the real adventure.